Welcome to Insight Marketing Success, the podcast where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience, from vision to execution.
Hi, Brandon Avedikian. Welcome to IMS, Insight Marketing Success. I had the opportunity to meet with you before, but tell us, our audience, who are you?
Yeah, so my name's Brandon Avedikian. I'm the founder of Aspire CRE. We're a commercial real estate brokerage and property management firm based in Houston, Texas. We sell, lease, and manage and help people buy commercial properties across the office, industrial, retail, and land sectors.
Wonderful. Tell us about your education and your journey from graduation to founding your own company.
Yeah, so I went to college and studied accounting. Went to Abilene Christian University in West Texas, and then I graduated and got into public accounting, or I did a 5-year Master's of Accounting program, got my CPA, and then went and worked for Ernst & Young, and then quickly realized that accounting was not my passion and got out after about 15 months and got a job in commercial real estate, and the rest is history. So I worked for a company for 7 years in commercial real estate before I started Aspire CRE.
Wonderful. But obviously, the accounting knowledge of the numbers and financing helped you tremendously to get where you are.
Yeah, it definitely was a good, solid foundation. You know, accounting is the language of business, as they say. And so having that background has been helpful.
All right, so let's talk about in the process of starting your own company and getting your brand out there, you have made your challenge. Tell us about your biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge from my perspective of starting a company is all the things you have to learn how to do. So, and I think what a lot of people don't understand when they start a company is whatever you were doing before you were starting a company, whether you're a real estate broker like me, whether you are in accounting and starting an accounting firm, whether you're a lawyer, even whether you're a doctor, once you start a business, you're no longer a real estate broker or accountant or lawyer or doctor. You're a business owner. And the expertise you needed to build your career and whatever you did is very different from the skills you'll need to grow a business. And so everything from, how to get timely and accurate books to how to select and manage vendors, how to pay bills, how to pay employees, HR, marketing, operations, administrative, the list goes on and on. And so I was a real estate broker for 7 years before I started Aspire CRE, and I was a pretty good, at least I'd like to think I was a pretty good real estate broker after 7 years of doing nothing but that. But I had zero experience actually owning and operating a business. And so I made a lot of mistakes. I continue to make a lot of mistakes, some of which, looking back, were very obvious, and some of which, I don't know how I could have known without just going through it. But you get better and you figure it out. And to answer your question about how do you get through it, I think what I have found is you've got to just take one problem and focus obsessively on that one problem until that problem is solved, and then move on to the next. I used to just have this long, never-ending list of problems I wanted to solve, and you can just get overwhelmed and not actually solve any of them. And so if you have 10 problems that are top of mind, ignore 9 of them until you pick the one that's most important, solve that one first, and then move on to the next. Because if you try to solve all 10 at once, you're just going to be miserable like I was for a long time.
All right. Sounds like you have a lot of experience in starting that new business. I have a comment and then I have a follow-up question. My first comment is this. I early on when I started the company, I realized what you just said. And my tagline used to be, I'm the president and the janitor when it's needed. because you have to do exactly what's needed, right? And at times it's
Hmm.
cleaning the stupid toilet, and that's what it is.
And it's
Move
just
on.
random things that pop up, and it's not consistent. And what popped up last month is different than last week, is different than this week, and is different than next week. And
Yeah.
so,
Okay. But IMS is focused on marketing. So let me try to bring you focused on the branding of your company, because you were a startup and you probably have been working, for 7 years. So you knew the ins and outs, but you had to get your own name out and you have to establish your brand. So you had a big challenge. So when it comes to marketing and your brand, tell me about a home run that you would have made.
so I started focusing on social media and creating content pretty early in my entrepreneurial journey. And the majority of our business still comes from traditional customer acquisition channels, which, cold calling, referrals, and organic growth. But we have sourced a lot of business through social media and people that came to us because they saw our content, and that continues to get more and more and more. And, I think in 5 years, that'll be, or less, that'll be the majority of where we acquire customers.
So is your approach to educate prospective customers or experience and case studies? What the content is like? I interviewed somebody even earlier today, and he does property management investments. So he has a whole channel on educating people who want to invest in real estate. And then that's how he positions himself in LinkedIn and has a webinar and so forth. And that's how he acquires his investors. What's the approach that you use?
Yeah, so to date, it has been primarily written content on X and LinkedIn. And it's just like me sharing what's on my mind, sharing how I see things, talking about, industry specific stuff and non industry specific stuff, and just being consistent. And, and over time, people just start listening to and following along with the things you say. And then when a need comes up, whether it be for them or they know of someone that needs help, they refer you or get you in, reach out to you directly or put you in touch with the person they know that needs help. And that's how we've seen growth. But we are very focused now on YouTube, Instagram, and video content. And we've done a lot. We've made quite a bit of it. We've made dozens and dozens of videos at this point. But relative to the written content, we're still in the very, very early innings, and we're still learning the video side.
Okay. Right. So in your process of growing your company, I'm sure you had learning experiences. Other people call them mistakes. Can you share one of those where you invested and you expected a big return and you got very little return, and but you learned something?
Yeah, I've got a funny. Well, it's kind of funny, but for me, it's not funny. It was actually really painful. But the first executive that I hired to run operations and really help me grow, the performance of that person was not what I had hoped. And I was dealing with a lot of things personally and just kind of let it fester for longer than I should have. And then come to find out, uh, that person is a US based person, high paid person. He was outsourcing 95% of his job to a $5 an hour VA overseas. And he had trained this person to given this person all of his logins and taught her how to impersonate him. And I found hours of videos of him doing this that he accidentally left behind. And so for a year or so, I couldn't figure out why it was so hard to just run a basic company. I think we had about 10 when he started and 25 by the end. And it was every day was just a battle. And I couldn't figure out why. And I thought I was doing the right thing by hiring an executive level talent. And then once I figured that out, things start to get a lot easier. And you get someone in that's actually paying attention and isn't scamming you. And so that was a big learning lesson. I think when there's smoke, there's fire. And if something doesn't feel right, don't let it fester. Address it right then, right. Like address it then and there and figure out what's going on. And if someone is not meeting expectations, especially in a new company, they've just got to go, no matter how disruptive it may be.
There's that saying of hire slow, fire fast. So, it certainly applies. Great. So let's talk about Brandon, the person, and let's assume that you went to a restaurant where you live and you're in a booth, but people cannot see you behind and you cannot see them, but you hear familiar voices and they are three of your best friends. And suddenly they start talking about Brandon, yourself. What would be the three things you will hope they say about you? Let's call it positive things.
Okay. They would probably say that I work really hard. They would probably say that I am not capable of pretending to be something I'm not. I just tell it how it is. Usually that's a good thing, but maybe not always. And then they would say that, I'm loyal. I care about the people close to me and take care of them.
Nice. You touched on my next question earlier, but if you can give more details, it would be great. So you know that life can be overwhelming, and at times either professionally or personally. And when you get combined, like when you were talking about you were having some personal issues, and then you had a bad hire, so now it's a combination of these things coming, and you probably feel the water up to here. Right? And then what you said is take one problem at a time, but give us more details. I mean, do you have any providence or any help from a friend? How do you find the light and then how do you adapt it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a great family. I've got a wonderful wife. And, I've got great friends. But at the end of the day, it's just you and your team. But at the end of the day, you're the only one that is feeling that pain at that level. And I wish I had some sort of way to solve it. But the only way I've found to solve it is just through brute force and focus and putting in the hours and having, I couldn't do it without a wife that supports me and is on board with the journey we're on. But it is what it is. You've got these problems. There's no one to call and you got to figure it out.
Correct. Let's assume that you have the opportunity to whisper on your ear at the time of graduating from college and ready to start your first job. What would you whisper to yourself?
It's a good question. I would say don't stress the small stuff. And the hardest times are the biggest growth periods. And sometimes you have to go through something to prepare you for what's next. And so when you're in the mud, just remember that there might be a greater reason that you don't yet see that you're going through that. And don't feel sorry for yourself and just focus on what you can control and wake up every day and do the best you can.
Thank you very much for today's. Look forward to getting to know you better and working with you.
Thank you for having me. enjoyed the conversation and appreciate you reaching out.
Thanks for listening to Insight Marketing Success, where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience from vision to execution.